you can invest in mining stocks, and there are
Mhm.
good stocks to invest in, but you have to be careful of what stocks you invest in here in the U.S. because again, uh, a lot of the stocks are overinflated. But now, what a lot of people in the stock market are doing is looking at emerging markets, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have a lot of uh, countries like China who is doing, their stocks are doing well, right? You have, as you've mentioned, obviously people are taking their money out of the stocks, and even the rise in the prices of gold and silver is an indication, right? That's an indicator in economics that the the system is not doing well, right? We have a financial system that is having a lot of problems. And so anytime the investors see that there's a problem in the financial system, they hoard gold and silver, right? And so the more people jump into the gold and silver, that's the reason why you have prices of the gold and silver going, crazy right now at astronomical highs.
Oh, can I say something too? You were speaking of the rise of the East and the collapse of the United States empire. You were talking about now people are trying to figure out where to put their money. A lot of people don't know that there's a high interest in Iraq. That's in the East. There's a high
Mhm.
interest in actually investing in their stock market, Iraq, because as you're saying, they're an emerging nation. And
Right.
so, for those that can't see the rise of the East and the collapse of the United States Incorporated, in our private group, we've discussed how the stock market in Iraq is doing phenomenally well.
Mhm. As well as something interesting about Iraq, America just pulled out their military from Iraq. Like one of the main bases that America had in Iraq, they just pulled out, and they've taken all of the troops and all of the excuse me, all of the artillery and everything,
They sure have.
and they brought it back to America. What that indicates, as you've mentioned, is that uh, Iraq is gaining sovereignty, full sovereignty,
Full
and this
sovereignty.
is this is what pretty much every nation in the world is going towards is full sovereignty.
Hmm.
And you look
Yeah.
at America. Go ahead.
And I don't want you to lose your thought.
Go ahead.
Okay. And also Iraq just created a large transportation hub. They have the largest transportation system in the whole Middle East. And some say possibly the largest transportation system in the world. Speaking of the collapse of the empire here, the United States Incorporated and the rise of Iraq in the Middle East. So what they did is they connected more than 66 countries to their transportation hub. And they're saying that their transportation system now is more effective, more efficient, and faster than any other transportation hub that's ever existed. So I'm just
And
confirming what you're saying. Yes.
and see what you're talking about is connected to the Belt and Road Initiative that China
Okay.
had. So
Okay.
China is working to recreate the Silk Road, right?
Mm.
So the Silk Road was where they did trade in Asia from East Asia all the way to Europe and into Africa.
Mm.
That was, over 1,000 years ago. So now China is recreating it in a modern sense by putting high railroad and lighting systems into all of those countries going from China throughout the Middle East. And you have Iraq, uh, Iran, Pakistan, Afghanistan, all of these countries have been working with China to create this road, which is going to help with production, right? It's going to because you need the railroads for transportation of all of the goods, right? So
Mm.
there's going to be a lot more ease of travel in these countries. When you look at Europe, when Europe colonized the world, they set borders, right? Specific borders for these countries. The countries like the map that we use today is a map that was drawn up based on post World War II, right?
Okay.
The winners of the war were able to redraw the map in their favor. The countries that we're looking at, that we're talking about, whether it's in Asia or in Africa, they didn't draw those lines themselves.
Oh,
So
okay.
when you look at the Mali Empire, for example, in Africa, they were most of West Africa, right? Now the Mali, when you look at Mali, the country is one small country with a lot of border countries around it, but most of those border countries were a part of the Mali Empire,
Oh,
right?
okay. I didn't know
Yeah,
that. Okay.
Senegal, Burkina Faso, a lot of these countries,
Chad, Niger.
exactly, were a part of the Mali Empire.
And
And
can you
so
say what just happened to them? What they just did recently?
they kicked out the French. A lot of the Western African countries kicked out the French, and the French actually. When I went to Senegal, I realized that the Senegalese still pay taxes to the French government.
Wow.
Their currency is actually tied to the French government.
Okay.
They have
Hmm.
what they call the French CFA, or the French CFA. So they're still using a currency that's tied to the French dollar,
Okay.
as is most of West Africa. I think the exception being Ghana, Nigeria, and maybe Gambia. But the reason that they're kicking out France, obviously, is because it's a new day. They're actually at the point where they have enough power, enough military power to oppose the French regime, right? Um, Russia has been the ally for most of these countries in terms of um, the military might, right? Being able to oppose America militarily and Europe militarily. Whereas China has been the financial backers, right? So
Oh.
you have the International Monetary Fund, the IMF,
Hmm.
and the World Bank. These are American and European financiers of governments. So anytime the world wanted a loan, they would get the loan from America, or the IMF or the World Bank.
Okay.
China has become the new alternative.
Mm.
And a lot of the world is now using China, right, to finance their projects that they have in their countries.
And you see, I've always wondered about China. I've been kind of on the fence with China because when we were in Africa, we saw them mining a lot of the gold in Ghana. And many of the Ghanaian miners, the young men, were saying that they would rather have European bosses in the mines than Chinese bosses because the Chinese bosses were cruel, So I've been kind of on the fence with China. I hear that they're financing, many of these emerging nations, but then I saw them mining the gold in Africa. What's your stance?
It's difficult, right? Because
Okay.
you're having to choose, if you're Africa, for example, if you want to work with China or if you want to work with America. But for the governments, they choose China because they've already been working with America and or the United States and Europe, and it's actually put them in a chokehold where they haven't been able to
Mm.
produce anything of substance. They're not, like, their infrastructure is not as well as they would like it to be, and
Okay.
also it's a political attachment to any money that you get from America.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
a lot of the countries are choosing China because they say, well, China has told the countries, we don't care
Mm.
how you vote in the UN, right? We don't care how
Oh.
you decide your own politics. For example, America was forcing the world to become a democracy. and every country doesn't want to be a democracy.
Yeah, the adept more agrees with you. He says internationally, I would think that China would be the lesser of the two evils when it comes to China versus the West, the United States
And
Incorporated. Okay.
right. And that's the way that other nations are looking at it, is China would
Mm,
be the lesser of two evils. And
okay.
China has not shown to be where they want to take over the world, right? America and Europe actually took over the world and
Right.
oppressed the world, right? And
Mm,
colonized the world.
mm,
So all of these countries remember the colonization and they're looking for alternatives. And China has been
mm.
the biggest alternative to the Western powers.
I see. Mm, mm. Yeah. Who is this? No body of knowledge saying it's like it's a double-edged sword. What, what do? You have to choose the lesser of the two evils.
Yeah, and now, but this is the reason why it's important for the other nations of the world and for every individual to learn how to be more productive, right? The
Mm,
countries are having to find out how to be more self-reliant. Um, in Africa, for example, they're creating different systems, financial systems and otherwise, to where they're interconnecting their border countries. Because before, if you were a border country, you still had to use the American system, SWIFT, for example, the banking system of America, in order
mm.
to do business across borders.
Okay.
All right. So, um, for example, if uh, Ghana wants to work with Togo, they
Mm-hmm.
would have to use American dollars in order to do business, whether it's uh, buying coffee beans or buying gold, they have to use the American dollar. So
Mm,
all of these other countries in the world are finding different um, ways of doing business across border, right, and within their own country in order to be more self reliant.